Welcome back to Gemstone Podcast. This is LP. I have Chy with me today. Zach couldn't be here. Before we get started, please make sure you go like and share and subscribe to our podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Pandora Podcasts, Spotify Anchor, and you can also find us on YouTube. Now, if you would like to send us fan mail, please email us at gemstonepodcast@gmail.com. It's Gemstones Podcast at gmail.com. Chy, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I can't complain. It is raining cats and dogs out here in Southern California. So Tony lied. Tony lied, girl.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Nah, but I'm good though. So further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our topic. So one thing I've been noticing lately is there's a lot of podcasts or panel like online discussions or roundtable discussions surrounding relationships and surrounding relationship advice. And so that just prompted me to kind of look into this a little deeper. I remember not too long ago, Chy, you said you went to, I think it's called Tonight's Conversation, where they have, I think his name is Ace Metaphor.
Yeah.
Ace Metaphor, Dr. Bryant, another young lady by the name of Kitty.
Keto Road.
Yeah, they got Keto
Okay,
Road, but
well,
it's another one called Kitty as well. And then
Metaphor is the host, but
yeah, he's the host. He's the host.
He has
He's the moderator.
Revolving panel on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they have different guests all the time.
Yeah.
But he's the moderator. He's the host of tonight's conversation. And like I was saying, that's a weekly podcast and video streaming like show that comes on YouTube and probably other platforms as well, where, like I said, Ace Metaphor is the host and moderator, and they have roundtable conversation about relationships with relationship experts, then coaches, therapists, and influencers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what prompted me to look into this a little bit deeper is because I wanted to know from a research aspect, are podcasts and these online panels considered like the new relationship advice mechanism? Like, is this what we use to assist us with relationships, with what we're going through in our marriages and our relationships? Are we using these new facets to assist us in how we adhere to our barriers or our issues? And so I asked the question, and then I asked for research to be pulled, and this is what came up about it. There's this thing called parasocial relations. And so parasocial relationships is a one-sided emotional connection that a person forms with a media figure, such as a podcaster, an influencer, an athlete, an actor, or even a fictional character that they have, created in their head. And this happens because the brain processes media interaction simultaneously or similarly to real social interaction. So this is why some of these podcasts can go sell out seats and go sell out venues because of the parasocial relationship. I'm just going off what I researched, right? And so I looked at something and it says, while direct trails of relationships and advice for podcasts are, somewhat scarce, most of the commentary that is provided by the individual, I just say individual, they use a different term. I just say individual who is hosting or moderating the podcast has a strong relationship to the parasocial attachment. So that makes me wonder, do we as a generation and as individuals, are we taking this advice because we like the person? Or are we taking the advice because the advice is good? Now, I ain't done. I'm almost done. So I even asked the demographics because I wanted to know, okay, I got the parasocial. I got why we have this. Okay, so what's the demographics associated with this? What's the demographics associated with our podcasts and online panels considered the new relationship mechanism for at this particular time in life? So here's the demographics. Millennials are the number one audience, ages 28 to 43. Millennials dominate or are considered the number one consumer for this method of relationship discussion and advice, and also podcast and panelist discussion. Guess who's number two? Gen Z. And this says Gen Z is a fast growing audience, but Gen Z is more associated with TikTok, short form podcast highlights, YouTube panels. Now, For the millennials, it's a little different. They said that they love it. They love it. They grew up with, we kind of grew up on the internet, but it says the number one reason why millennials seek it is because they're actively seeking emotional intelligence, therapy language, and self-development. Now, I'm going to pause right here because you remember way back, Chy, when we did a segment on Gemstone Podcast, we were talking about something with millennials, and it was some research that I pulled and said millennials are considered will have the number one facet of entrepreneurship. The reason why is because this generation thrives on self-development. Here we go again, that word again, it says actively seeking intelligence, therapy language, and self-development. Here we go again with self-development. It also says that the millennials thrive and desire this type of education because they want to use it as a reflective mechanism. Like they like to go up there, talk and reflect on their actions, and then have the panelists reflect on theirs. And then I guess they come to some type of understanding as to what to do going forward. Now, this is where it gets good. The number 3 core based consumer, which is 72% of listeners, are women. Specifically, it says Black women. Very key. Women are the largest audience for this group for relationship advice because I'm not going to get into what they say, but they say the research says these women seek connection, clarity, and growth from their partner. Connection, clarity, and growth. Okay. Now let's get to ethnicities. Guess who is the number one consumer?
Women.
No. Well, yeah, it's women, but Black, the Black community. It is the Black community who thrives and seeks this space. Now, what I found also interesting when I looked up other podcasts, not like, like tonight's conversation, one of them says it particularly focuses on love, dating, relationships in the Black community. When I looked up other podcasts associated with this topic as well, it said the exact same thing. It focuses on love, dating, relationships, particularly in the Black community. Now, I'm going to pause. It still brings me to this question. How did we get to this place where podcasts and online panels have become the new relationship advice mechanism where millennials, Gen Zs, and women who consume 72% of the space of this new wave of media and Black women, how did we get here? Why did we move from the traditional aspect of seeking advice? Why did we move from counseling services? Why did we move to speaking to your pastor? Why did we move from telehealth? Why did we move from these aspects? And when you look at the percentages, and I'm looking at the percentages right now, this space holds more advice and more promise than the actual licensed professionals. That's scary. And we see percentages in relationships like marriages, the percentage of divorce is increasing. The percentage of single households is increasing. The percentages of single mothers and single fathers both are increasing. But we don't have, in my opinion, this is my opinion, we don't have effective practices as far as how we're going to try to, mitigate these issues. But the only intervention that seems to be that everyone wants to go to is a podcast panel. So, Chy, I give the rest to you so we can just discuss this a little bit. I just want to know, how did we get to this point, and how do we try to move forward from this point?
All right. So when it comes to these love panels, where this started just basically from someone I online talking about his past experience of him being a narcissist. Most of the guys, including Ace Metaphor, he talked about, how when he would hit his record button on his phone and he would talk about, his past experiences and what to look for in men. So this is where this came from. So of course, um, that started to gravitate, and more people started to do the same form of content, which then turned into a business. Just like with the girls that do the boss brunches. It be business women and they have brunches and they charge people X amount of dollars to come. It's the same format. They get online, they tell you about how to, like business, how to be a boss or whatever, and then they come up with a brunch, conference to go to, and they charge you $300 to come to it. So it's the same format as these Love Podcast. Now, what I will say, I did have the pleasure of attending tonight's conversation. It was good. It was worth. It was worth the. I think the tickets was like $50. I don't remember. It was something like that. Maybe about $56. So it was definitely worth it. What I will say about Ace Metaphor, who is the owner of tonight's conversation, he is doing that a lot of these other podcasts, love shows are not doing. He's incorporating married couples. He's incorporating single women who give good advice online or have an online following. He's incorporating single men who have give advice online and have online follow. He's incorporated life coaches. He's incorporated doctors on his show, psychologists, lawyers. So he has a panel of a diverse panel of individuals, mostly all the time black. I mean, I think you might have had one white guy on there before or something, but most of the time black. But it's a diverse panel of people on the stage. Like he have actors on there. Remember Lance Gross was there the night that I went, and he had Toya on there and some other people. So he's giving a variety of people on this panel, and Dr. Young Van Zandt and Dr. Brian was there too. What he did was dope was he had Dr. Brian on the first segment and he had Iyanla on the second segment. So they went on the same panel together. So, how like he does it, the way he does it is a great formula, because the podcast is actually three segments. So yeah, so that's where it comes from. Now here's the thing about these love podcasts. You have to take them with a grain of salt. So if you're basing your life and your dating off of a podcast, you got bigger fish to fry. You need better. You need more help than this. Like if everything you do is based off of what Cecilia says, I don't know if y'all know Cecilia, but her name is Cecilia. I think it's Cecilia Talks or something on Instagram. She gives dating advice. But everything Cecilia says, and I like Cecilia. She was on tonight's conversation when I went. But everything Cecilia tells us is stuff we should already know. Like us as grown adults, we should know these things. But I mean, a lot of times people don't. Some of us didn't experience. We kind of, whatever. But anyway, so a lot of the things that they discuss, like I said, it's stuff that we should already know. So you should take it as a grain of salt. In my opinion, it's more for entertaining purposes opposed to actual help. Which there are shows for mental health and things like that. And a lot of people on that actual panel, like some of them are life coaches, some of them are psychologists, some of them actually do host or are part of different actual mental health things related outside of this show. But these podcasts are for entertainment purposes. Now, if you take a gem from it, that's great, but you should not base your whole dating culture, your dating life around a podcast of people that you don't know. Like, okay, if you what I'm saying, if you have deeper issues when it comes to dating, you might need to get a therapist. Like, you might need to hire a therapist and work out some things. But like I said, these podcasts are for they're for entertainment purposes. And even with like him, like at first, Ace Metaphor, at first it would be just like him. He's an influencer, and Trille C is an influencer, but Trille C has been married for probably close to a decade, and he's a millennium, and he's been online giving relationship advice since, I mean, probably since like 2011. So I mean, some of the people he have on the podcast they have enough capital, like they married, they long term relationships. They have enough capital to give advice. So yeah, but either way, just take it with a grain of salt. Now, as far as going, is this the new wave? It's the current wave. It's the current money maker. A lot of these podcast hosts are getting rich off of podcasting. But you actually need some kind of talent or something to suffice because the podcast industry is up and down. So I don't believe that a few podcasts that are doing well is gonna keep people from actually seeking real marital counseling, things like that you should do anyways. In relationships, you should have some kind of, marital counseling or something like that in your life, anyways. And you could take little gems here and there from these podcasts that you might enjoy. Like, I listen to Poor Minds all the time, but guess what? poor minds, I'm not taking everything they say and just it's holy grail. No, it's not. They say some funny things sometimes. They say some real stuff sometimes. I stuff I can relate to, a lot on poor minds. But it's with a grain of salt. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it's the end all be all. It's just the current wave right now. People are still going to therapy. People are still doing that. But I do think like us as millennials, people did realize that hey, I can become a millionaire on a podcast. So let me be a podcast. And if I can make even more money if I talk about relationships, if I talk about dating, if I talk about all this kind of stuff, I can make $2 million doing it. And that's what they're doing. That's why you always see them on tour all the time. It's a nice conversation going on tour twice a year. They have like 20, 30 city tour twice a year. That's a lot, you know. That's a lot of bag chase. That many tours in 1 year.
But
Yeah.
one thing though, Sha, like I get what you're saying. Like people still going to therapy, people still going to that. But the research is saying that the implications for podcasts versus therapy intervention, podcast listening surrounding relationship advice is starting to overtake the traditional method of going to seeing a licensed professional counselor, LCSW, or
But
coach. And you did touch on that, like you talk about like tonight's conversation, how they have some of these certified relationship like coaches, and I don't know about psychologists, but I do know they have certified
they have
relationships.
a show.
And like like Kitty Rose is a certified relationship coach. Like I guess her whole aspect is focusing on self-awareness, communication, healing from past relationship patterns, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I think it states that she represents for a more mature audience.
Mm.
Keto Rose is an influencer. He's known
Mm.
for, comedy content and often relationship advice, mental health things, and, modern dating. And then, you got your favorite on there. Before we get to her, you got Trip Fontaine, who was on there at one particular time. He was a reoccurring, guest.
Okay, so
He
Keita
had his
Rose is the
own.
influencer,
Mm-hmm.
but she's not on there no more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, Kitty Rose is the one who's on there currently, but I know your favorite. I ain't gonna say favorite.
Mm-mm.
You like Dr. Brown. You a big fan
Yeah,
of Dr.
but
Brown.
Dr. Brian not on there all the time. She's not a recurring cast member.
Nah, she don't need to be.
She's not on
Uh
there all the time. She's just on there on certain certain things. Recurring cast wise, he got the only one that's a recurring cast is Kitty. The rest of them are rotating.
I guess my only issue with this, and I guess I just come out and say what my issue with this is that when you have a format such as this, and it would appear to me that it's the Black community who has the most interaction with it. We have to ensure that the information we're providing assists with advancing the Black community. And at times, because I did some research, not just on reading, but also listening to some of these podcasts. And I don't really hear, and I'm just gonna be, very, very transparent and just, this honest. I don't hear where these conversations are advancing the Black community. And more, this is like you said, this is entertainment. This is more making the Black community look like a joke, look like they're still lost, look like they don't have any direction when it comes to relationships, or when it comes to marriage, when it comes to parenting, because a lot of the questions are surrounding marriage, parenting, interaction, trying to see if I should marry this person, if I should marry this person. I mean, we even have married individuals on there at times who's coming on that particular these platforms, and having questions. Even those who write into, and I'll use us for an example. We've had a few individuals who wrote into our podcast who's sent us fan mail surrounding relationships, surrounding things like that. I mean, we may laugh, giggle, but we try to give advice to assist the Black community advancing. And that's just my opinion. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that these platforms all share that same mission.
Nah.
I'm not gonna say all of them don't, because that'd be me giving misinformation, because I don't know all of them.
Nope, none of them do, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I don't know all of them, but I would like to see more of the education that's being provided to these people to help advance the Black community. I know you guys think I don't really care for Dr. Bryant in that manner, and that's not the case. I don't have any issue with Dr. Bryant by no means. I just want Dr. Bryant to have the decorum that's matched with a PhD, an EDD, or a Psych D, because you have a role where you obtain a doctoral degree or a doctorate to now advance whatever community that you wrote your dissertation on. Like for me, I wrote my dissertation. You can look it up. It's published. You can look it up. All you gotta do is type my name in. It'll come up in Google somewhere. I wrote my dissertation. My target population was frontline healthcare professionals, but Black frontline healthcare professionals, African American in the southern region. Okay. So, but anytime I write an article, anytime I publish them, because I published 2 articles now, I want to make sure it aligns with the original body of work. I don't want to fall out of alignment. My goal is to advance the community in which I come from. So anything I write surrounding leadership, and I'm talking about getting you a toolkit for leaders, and then the next article is talking about developing a leadership regime when you're being targeted for being a good leader, which mostly happens in the Black community. Because when Black leaders are good at what they do and they're good leaders, they become targets. So developing a leadership regime helps you advance. So I'm still in alignment with the overall arching mission. I've seen some of the work that she's published. I've seen some of the work that Kitty Rose has published. I've seen, well, he ain't got no work. But I've seen some things that, Trill has put out. And my overarching issue, like I said, what Kitty Rose put out aligns with what she says when she's on there. Now, Trill's not on there anymore. He has his own platform. But the things he's put out also aligns with what he has on his own podcast now. My big issue with a person like Dr. Bryant is you have the bandwidth to actually help, and you actually have the credentials, so to speak, to help advance the people and really provide that education. It's not happening. And then we have research that's telling us that this lane, I'm gonna say lane, is not being considered the new wave or the best practice or the most applicable intervention for relationship advice as a mechanism. Okay, now we have to take this serious because it's specifically targeted toward what community? The Black community. It didn't say Hispanic. It didn't say white. It didn't say Pacific Asian American. It said Black, the Black community. What's always under the attack? The Black community, which when we look at these higher education institutions, when we had a whole podcast about this, y'all saw it's been a white nationalists, et cetera, et cetera, what was under attack? We was talking about the HBCUs. HBCUs are under attack. We have to try to, as a people, when we have these esteemed credentials and have this opportunity to advance the people, we have to start taking initiative. We can't just conform to the bad, so to speak. And that was my whole beef when I was saying, when we was talking about HBCUs, I said when they misappropriate funds, because we have HBCU leaders who would then conform or start misappropriating funds because when they are adjacent to these PWIs, we'll give you X amount of money if you do this. We'll do you X amount of money if you do that. And I also mentioned, that the president, the former president of Prairie A&M University stepped down because of that, because of internal conflict. Shout out to PV. They got their money from A&M not too long ago. God is good. But that's what I'm saying. So when I look at this aspect of it, and I'm seeing and I'm listening to this advice and I'm listening to what the things in which they're telling, I don't hear the basic information that's going to help a demographic move forward. If anything, it keeps us where we are. And that's the problem. Yes. And then you made a good point too, though, Sha. You said people figured out that you can just do a podcast and get money, or if you consistent. No, if you come in this space of podcasting, you have to be called to it. This is not something that you can just pick up and put down and think you're gonna make money for it. This is something that you have to, in my opinion, I feel like this is something that you have to be called for, because the information that you got to provide has to actually advance the people. Just like being a preacher, just like being a president, just like being a politician, just like being a medical provider. That's something that I feel like you have to be destined and called to be, because in those specific roles, what do you have in your hand? You have people's lives in your hands. And I look at podcasting the same way. When you offering advice and
somebody life in your hand from podcast.
In my opinion, because if you offering advice and people writing in and they ask you to help me with my situation, give me some advice. Yeah, you got in some aspect, you got their hands in your life. And you have to give them the appropriate divine wisdom and the appropriate divine direction and how to move forward. That's how I see it. I'm being honest. If someone comes to a mic, let's frame this. They have a venue of 10,000 seats. Let's say they sell not 10, but they sell 8,000 seats, right? That's 8,000 individuals in that particular venue. Now, the way it's set up, and this is how a lot of podcasts are set up, not just tonight's conversation. They have a mic, right? A person can come up and ask the question. If a person gets up and has the vulnerability and the transparency to get up in front of 8,000 people and air out dirty laundry and seeking advice, how do you not have their life in your hand in some aspect? Because they're asking you for advice for something concerning companionship, relationships. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, and what's being given back or being given to the individual who's asking the question, we can say, oh, that's, take it with a grain of salt, that's their opinion, but they're going up there really seeking help. Quite as a kept, if you go to a doctor, those are highly educated guesses. That's why you go to testing. That's why they get labs. That's why they go through so many different steps to try to confirm and to acknowledge what they think is taking place with you. That don't mean they right. That's why they all got malpractice insurance on their license, because they're taking highly educated guesses. What's the difference with this? See, I look at it from a behavioral health component, from a psychological safety kit component. If people are coming to a mic and asking questions about their spouses, about their kids, about their significant others, how they should move forward, man, you have to be desperate. You have to be on your last whim. Like, this is like this information you get from this panel is something you're going to use and you're going to use moving forward.
Some of them people are just up there for shits and giggles. Some of them people are serious, but at the end of the day, these podcasts, most of them, 90% of them, are just people that turned on their camera. That's it. Nothing else. They don't have a background in it. They don't. A lot of these people are people that turned their camera on and people watched it. That's it.
See, but you're making my point. And that's what I'm saying. I agree with what you just said. That's it. But what I'm saying is, like, the audience, though,
high standard is ridiculous, because it's not that. Like,
man, nah, I disagree with.
It's just not that. If you want to go to someone, a podcast or something, there's places for that. But these podcasts in particular, like tonight's conversation and the truth and all them people, this is for giggles. This is not for nothing that is gonna hold no weight. It ain't for nothing that's gonna impact the community. This is pure entertainment, and that's it.
My thing is, though, Shy, I get what you're saying, and I'm not saying what you're saying is incorrect. I agree with you 100%. You saying this is for entertainment, this is for kicks and giggles, and some of the people that's on that, some people who's visiting on the panel, they're just up there because they're an influencer, or they're just up there to kind of kick it. You know what I'm saying? I get what you're saying, but what I'm saying is from a evidence-based approach, right? How I'm seeing it and how I framed it and how I framed it based off what's being presented. Now I'm looking at it from the audience's perspective. If the audience is coming to seek advice, because these people are coming to a mic.
Not the whole audience. Some of them people get on there and don't even be telling the truth. Some of them people get on that mic and they be lying. Some of them people are paid actors to hit that mic. So all of it is not the truth.
Well, that makes it even worse. If we have individuals who are coming to a podcast show or venue or whatever it may be, and they are being paid to go up there and give questions that are not real, is that not making fun of the Black culture?
No, it's not.
Oh, man.
It don't matter about the Black culture and all that stuff.
Oh, man, Shy.
It's a variety show. It's a variety panel. That's it. It's not about the Black culture. It's not about... And white people do this stuff all the time. We have a whole lounge out here called Riot that you can get up and ask questions. And them people, they'll tell you anything. It doesn't matter. And that's a white lounge.
Look. Shy, you cannot... Shy. Okay, I'm gonna give an example. I'm gonna provide an example.
The Black community will be just fine
No,
with
they
or
won't.
without tonight's conversation. Nothing's gonna change.
No, okay, no, we're not gonna say that. We're not gonna say
Nothing
that.
will change. Nothing will change.
So let's. So you have a podcast that's just one podcast. It's called Let's Get Vulnerable. This podcast is by Dr. What's the woman name? Dr. Morgan Anderson, a psychologist and relationship coach.
And I bet you that her podcast is more serious. It's
Hold
more
on.
all of those things.
Now let me
Tonight's
finish.
conversation
Now
is
let me
not
finish.
serious.
Now let me finish. Let me finish. So the audience for this podcast is more catered towards the European descent, which is Caucasian white. Now, I said let's compare apples to apples real quick. Now, she's Dr. Morgan Anderson. Not trying to give no shameless plugs, not trying to give nobody no shout outs. How is it that with this particular podcast, they have more serious conversations surrounding white European relationships, and they're offering the concepts that are and the modalities associated with overcoming barriers in relationships, whether it be sex, whether it be just simple financial disagreements, blending households. How can they have more serious conversations? And then we have other podcasts and spaces for a Black community that will not offer the same for their community. That's my beef. And you're saying no, the Black community be fine. No.
Well,
Because
if
we
you
don't.
see a
Hold on.
if
Let
you
me
see a
finish.
void in that, you should provide that void.
If and this is why I keep saying, if you're going to do a podcast, if you want to do this space, because you, in some aspect, you have to be called in this space. That's just my opinion. Because you have a person that's doing this podcast called Let's Get Vulnerable. She's offering the modalities, the psychological perspective, the psychological toolkits, the psychological wellness background to advancing over barriers with relationship, but specifically for the white population. Then we have our demographic, our lane, and then we have these people like Dr. Bryant, Kitty Rose, Dr. Van Zet, all these other people that we have on the. And let's be honest. Tonight's conversation is one of the most popular podcasts for the Black community. I'm gonna keep it real. When you look at the demographic, tonight's conversation is considered number one. So in the Black community, so why is it we can't offer the same to our people? That's my issue.
We do, but it's not
Don't.
there
No,
though.
we
It's
don't.
not in tonight's conversation. If you're looking for that kind of podcast, there are other podcasts out there that's offering that. Tonight's conversation is not. Just like Dr. Brian. Dr. Brian is on a lot of panels. She's on a lot of different
Oh God,
podcasts.
here we go. This Dr. Brian.
Some are serious, some are not. So if you're looking for a more serious approach from her and them, you gotta go seek it. That tonight's conversation is not that.
Here we go with this Dr. Brian. Here we go.
Dr. Brian, Triple OG, baddie. Yeah.
Okay, you can call her baddie, whatever it may be.
She is a baddie. She's a baddie.
So this is what I say. Jason Wilson is a male who does a lot of life coaching for men. He's a God-fearing man. He was on Cam Newton's podcast. They had a conversation about marriage and relationships, and that's when I found out who Jason Wilson was. Man, good brother, smart guy. Really enjoyed the conversation. Really enjoyed that podcast that he had with Cam Newton. And I was like, man, you know, and this is the only reason why I'm bringing this up, because you mentioned Dr. Brian. Dr. Brian had the same conversation with Cam Newton on his podcast. I think on Funky Friday. Jason Wilson had the same conversation. How is it that Jason Wilson provided a more clear, evidence-based, scripture-supported, when I say scripture, I'm speaking biblical, scripture-supported conversation and information surrounding Cam Newton than Dr. Brian, who has a doctoral degree? That should not happen. And this is what I'm saying.
Well, and then that's only your opinion though.
Okay. Have you seen the podcast that he did with Jason Wilson?
So here's the thing: I don't watch Cam Newton podcast.
See, but
I have. Let me finish. I have saw some of the clips. But here's the thing about Cam Newton. Cam Newton is a sexist. Cam Newton is a misogynistic man. Cam Newton is a manipulator. Cam Newton is ain't. So a woman coming to his podcast and telling him the same thing a man tell him, he's going to take it two different ways, because for one, he's sexist. For one, he's misogynistic. It does not matter. It could have been Mother Mary or Dr. Brian. He would have not took it the same way. He's a misogynistic. Misogynistic men do not take the same teachings from women as they do men, because they are misogynistic. It does not matter who talks to him. Any man that comes on that show to tell him the same, he gonna take it better because he's misogynistic. He's a male chauvinist. Does not matter who sits on his podcast. So Dr. Brian gave him the real and raw uncut. This man that came on the podcast gave him the real raw uncut, but gave it to him, cuddled him a little bit, gave it to him a little bit softer, gave it to a little bit brother to brother. She ain't do that. She gave it to him straight up, no chaser, gin and juice. And that's okay. Either way it go, he wasn't gonna take Dr. Brian's advice no way because he misogynistic. So let's just start there. If we're gonna talk about women and men advice, we gotta actually pick men that men of substance. Cam Newton is not a man of substance.
Okay, but hold on, Chy. I asked you a question. I said, have you seen the one with Jason Wilson and Cam Newton? You said no.
No, I did not. No, I did not.
Yes, you did. You said no. You said you don't watch Cam Newton.
No.
Okay. You said you saw clips.
Me saying I don't watch Cam Newton don't mean I didn't see this one.
You said you saw clips.
Exactly. I have not watched the whole thing because I can't watch a whole Cam Newton episode.
Okay, that's my point.
I saw what you're talking about.
Okay, I know. I saw the entire of Dr. Brian's interview with him and the interview with Jason Wilson. What I'm saying is, you're saying, oh, she gave it to him, no chaser. And he got, no, he did too. If you watch that entire interview, you will see where.
I just said that, but it's a difference. It's a difference.
I know what you're saying because
you're a misogynistic man, you're not going to take it the same way.
I get what you're saying, Chy. I'm not arguing with that. I get what you're saying. You're saying he's misogynistic. I get it. I'm not discrediting what you're saying concerning.
Oh no, I know you're not. I know you're not, but I'm just saying.
I'm not discrediting that. But what I'm saying is
in the conversation.
The way Jason Wilson explained things from a biblical and from a therapeutic.
Okay, everyone's not biblical. Everyone's not. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is all opinion based. Man, it's not fact.
Oh God.
I'm gonna go on mute.
No, because you get mad when I get on this Dr. Brian case because I be hitting the facts.
I don't know Dr. Brian. I don't know Dr. Brian.
I know you don't know her.
I'm not mad. It's not about being mad. It's just that all of this is opinion based. Like it's not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's opinion based.
It's just opinion based. That's it.
But we can say the same. But okay, so it's opinion based. Let's stay on opinion based, right? Healthcare is opinion based. Therapy is opinion based. That you know what they do? They do assessments and they make a lot of high level educated guesses, and then they provide you with a treatment plan, and then they also provide you with interventions. Like medication is an intervention, but with medication you have to have a healthy diet, start exercising. There's other recommendations associated with your treatment plan. A lot of this is highly educated guesses, right? Okay, so what I'm saying is with this concept and with this aspect is that he provided, I said biblical, everybody don't do biblical, but when we look at Dr. Bryant and it says that she's a psychologist coach or a life coach surrounding psychology, I expected more of the terminology in which Jason used. I expected Dr. Bryant to use. Now, Cam is a little misogynistic. You're correct. He don't like really taking information from women because he wants to be seen as the dominant figure. And Cam Newton's a big dude. He's big. He's a big guy. So he's in this space of used to be in the dominant presence. So even with men sometimes, he also struggles with that because he's used to being a dominant presence. If you looked at, like I'm saying, if you watch the entirety of the interview, you will see where at times it was a power struggle with him and Jason Wilson. But Jason Wilson had the patience and had the wisdom to kind of, I wouldn't say coddle him because he didn't coddle him, because it was several times in the interview where, Cam he said, well, was Jesus married? And then, Jason Wilson said, well, don't say it like that. Like, I got you because you don't have me. This. Then he started laying it out, giving him so much information. And then Jason said, I can't give you, Jesus only had 33 years. I can't give you the breakdown because we don't have enough time in this interview to debunk all of this. This is what I can tell you though. You know what I'm saying? And so the same concept, I wish like that tonight's conversation is a number one podcasting panelist conversation for the Black community. I just wish they operated in some of the same facets that these Caucasian genres do, because they number ones. They offer the best practices and the modalities associated with reducing barriers in their community. while we in our community focus on the entertainment aspect of it. That's all I'm saying. If this is the new wave, I'm cool with it. But can we try to advance our people? Because once again, other ethnicities that have some of the similar spaces and similar lanes in this shared space are offering that for their people. Why can't we do the same? And they're number ones when it comes to podcasting. They're number ones when it comes to radio talk shows. They're number ones when it comes to book journals and reading and novels. They offer that perspective and that best practice. It breaks my heart over and over and over again to see our people continue. We already got enough to fight for just to have the seat at the table. And then when you get a seat, you got to fight like hell to keep it. So it breaks my heart that we have all these self-inflicted wounds over and over again. Because when we have these opportunities to advance and we have these platforms and we doing these circuits and we doing these tours, that we're not providing the best practice and the best information to help. I can't, I get it. Get your money. Get your money. Go ahead, get your money. I ain't mad at it. But are we willing to, once again, just like I said with the HBCUs, are we willing to sacrifice the greater good of our people for the bag? Because that's what it seems like over and over and over and over again.
Well, I would say be the change you want to see. If you feel like there's a void in our community for these type of discussions and podcasts, be the change you want to see. Like, be the change you want to see, or find better podcasts. Like, we have better podcasts out here that are touching on things that the nice conversation or the truth don't touch on.
Can you name some?
Yes, I can. 1 second. Living Beyond Offense is one. That's one. Redefining is another. Real Talk with Kim is another. She's a pastor. Who else? I ain't gonna lie, y'all. I don't be listening to them like that, but these are some of the ones I got on my Apple Podcast. Club Chat is another one. They talk about finance. They talk about traveling. They talk about getting out of debt, all kinds of different resources like that. So we have some. I'm sure we have more. So if y'all have more that y'all know about, drop it to us.
This is what I want to leave, I guess, with today. And we've talked offline about this before, Chy. And because what bothers me about those demographics is that it's stated that the number 3 when it comes to sustainable listeners were Black women. And then what also bothers me is I didn't touch on this, but the number 4 were men from ages 25 to 40. And it's saying that these men, they're seeking what they need is because they weren't historically accustomed to relationships, historically accustomed to leadership and being leaders. And so I want to take things back to the beginning of time, so to speak, when we talk about the Garden of Eden. When God created Adam, he gave him governance over everything living in the garden, and it was God who said man should not be alone. It wasn't man. It was God who walked the garden with Adam, had conversations. I don't know. We can perceive and take a highly educated guess that he was educating Adam on governance in some aspects, probably, and giving him information and giving him rules and regulations and guidelines as to what is his role when it comes to governing this particular space and all the things within it. It was God who said man should not be alone. And so then it also depicts that he put him in a deep sleep, took a rib. Now we have to understand that a rib, from a science aspect, your ribs or your exoskeleton, they are to protect your internal organs. Okay, that's key. Your ribs are here to protect your internal organs. That's why if you break a rib or you hurt your ribs, it's very critical that it can puncture a lung, it can puncture something, because the ribs are there to protect. So if your rib is broken, then your internal protection is no longer there. It has to heal again. Now, it said that he pulled the rib to create Eve. So Eve is his spiritual protection because, like I just said, ribs are your protection. Now, when we go on to this, it also states that, what took place with the apple and all this other stuff and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it don't say where Adam was. But we got to remember, Adam had governance over all things living. That included Eve. Now, when the actions take place, God comes looking. He don't call for Eve. He calls for Adam. And it was Adam who said, oh, I'm naked. I'm naked. What? How you know you naked? Dog, come on, man. What you got going? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then the punishment is rendered. To me, from a highly educated perspective of looking at this story, I see it as a man who failed in leadership. We ain't gonna worry about what Eve did because I believe God would have forgave it if Adam didn't take part in it. He would just educated them on how to maneuver that, which we still have this same issue today because she got advice from who? An outside source. Eve got advice. That's really what it was, from an outside source, and not who governed the garden. The serpent didn't govern the garden. Quiet as it kept, Adam governed that serpent. When I look at this and I see woman number 3, men number 4, we at the same place because who's seeking the advice? Men over women, once again, seeking advice. But it should be the men seeking advice from the divine, like it once was, how it was ordained in the beginning. Eve never walked with God. It was Adam who did. And his role was to disseminate that information to her and all the other living things in the garden. But we had the same space. And so when I look at this and I see that these other podcasts from other ethnicities, you look at the demographics, women ain't lead. That's why I keep saying the Black community has to pay attention to the larger thing that's taking place. But as I always say, we'll get it one day, just not today.
Oh, Lord, y'all, I hope y'all caught that. I hope y'all caught that. Women ain't leading in podcast. I hope y'all caught them undertones. This man on this podcast talking about women shouldn't be leading.
No, what I'm saying, I said the audience and the demographic. I said, and these other podcasts and these other ethnicities, when it comes to the audience, the women are not leading. When it comes to the audience demographic, it is the opposite sex, which would be males. That's what I was. You got to catch what I'm putting down. What I'm putting down. You got to have an ear to pick up because I'm dropping some insightful things, and I'm linking. Nah, okay. If you want to say it sound real Cam Newton, that's fine. What's written and what's taking place is still being depicted. Like I said, Eve got advice from an outside source. That is facts. The serpent or the Lucifer, the devil, however you want to name him, came in and spoke to her. He did not speak to Adam. It was her who he spoke to. It was her who took part in the taking place in the forbidden fruits. It was her. Then looped in Adam because of the advice in which she got. But who had governance over the garden? Adam, over all living things. That's facts, including the intruder. He had governance over that. And I keep saying, I feel like the punishment was rendered because Adam didn't adhere to his leadership role. If you have governance over everything, no matter what she tells you, you should know right from wrong because God's looking at it from an aspect, I'm teaching you, I'm telling you what you should and shouldn't do. You have governance over all these things living in this garden, including the intruder. It is your role to educate that particular individual that I created for you for your spiritual protection. You're supposed to educate that person. Hey, we ain't supposed to do this. Who told you this? No. But the opposite took place. I keep saying Adam and God walked the garden, not Eve. And I'm not trying to make it seem like women are less than. I'm showing the simple fact that men are still not adhering to their leadership roles in today's times when it comes to certain demographics, for sure. Because that's a clear depiction then in the beginning. It's a clear. I see it as leadership. And that leadership isn't redeemed until Moses comes. In my opinion, it's there.
Y'all. Yeah, I don't know, y'all.
We can talk about this till we blue in the face. We can talk about this till we blue in the face. We can bring up Solomon. We can bring up David. We can bring up Joshua. We can talk about so many different leaders in that Old Testament period of time where it was clear who had governance, but at times the governance was stripped or taken away due to poor or adverse performance associated with the opposite sex because they lost their focus on governance, which is leadership. It's clear. Not to say like I'm saying, I'm not speaking from a space of women are not supposed to have rights or be leaders or make decisions. I'm not saying that at all. But once again, we're talking about in this entire segment, the overarching question is podcasts and online panels considered the new relationship advice mechanism. And it states in the research, women, and specifically in the Black community, this genre by 72% across all spectrums. I just linked it back to the beginning of the time where advice was given from an outside source that didn't have governance.
Because that correlates. Okay.
Okay. I don't know what I be talking about though, man. Hey, we appreciate you guys for listening to Gemstone Podcast, man. It's been a great segment, great conversation with Chy, as always. Before you end this segment and log out, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Gemstone Podcast. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Pandora Podcasts, or Spotify, Anchor, or even YouTube, hit that like and hit that share button. And also subscribe to the game. We appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in with us. Until next time, peace.
Hey y'all, thank y'all for watching. Follow us on all our social media platforms. Follow me on my platform, Shy Marie, and we will talk to you later. Y'all, just look, y'all take it with a grain of salt, and we gonna pray on it, okay, y'all. All right, bye, y'all.